Well, we don't use my app. We use her app because my app's usually wrong. Because I'm always like, oh, it's not gonna rain, and then it'll rain, and then I'll be like, oh, it's gonna rain, and then it won't rain. And her app is always, oh, yep, dead on. How do you factor in weather? You don't really. I mean, you can try to plan around seasons, which is kind of how everything is planned out, anyways.
But then it's not
Because
because like for our hay this year,
oh,
the
we're
goal is to have the hay done before the end of May, and we didn't even get started until the last week of May because there was so much rain.
yeah,
So I mean, you can be a month off planning for seasons.
and part of that was we were tied up with we had deadlines for moving and everything like that, but it was I had like a week where I did hay in between rainstorms, and there was one more week I would have had the whole week to do it, but we had conflicting schedules and whatnot, so I couldn't lay any hay down. But yeah, like it rained today, you know, and I was looking at the weather because I was thinking about laying some hay down tomorrow, and it's supposed to rain Saturday and Sunday too, which will be great. But here we are, 1st of July, and I've still got some hay to put down, and I'm like, holy crap, we're getting late. But so in the summertime, uh, you need to be done working cows by 10 o'clock in the morning, because I mean, if unless it's a cool day, but by 10 o'clock it's sure enough hot, and I've seen a lot of people, and I get it. If you got schedules and you've got help lined up, whatnot, it'll be 1 o'clock. Feels like 108 degrees, and they've got cows in a corral, pushing them up the chute, and that's super stressful on the cow. You know, especially if you're working calves, like if you're castrating calves or anything like that. I mean, that's going to be really even more hard, stressful on them. Uh, they're getting the cold, the other extreme. They're going to need more energy requirements in the winter when it's real cold. So you got to plan for that too, for feeding. It's always the extremes. We've had some frostbite in the past, but because that's why we have a cow.
The cows more so than the calves, it seems like, because the cows are on fescue, and so that causes the blood flow issues, which
Yep.
then they lose their tails and their ears and their feet in the wintertime.
Yep.
Because there's just no circulation. That's not necessarily a product of the weather because some cows do fine and some don't with the fescue.
The only time you'll have trouble with the calves so far that we've seen,
They get wet.
if they get wet or if they don't nurse right away, when if they calve on a cold ground, and they don't get up right away and start nursing, they're laying on that cold ground. That's when you get issues.
That freak storm in February a few years back.
Yep.
That year there was a lot of calves with no ears.
Yep.
Everywhere else. Ours were all March, so we were okay, but
Yes.
there's not usually heat stroke without underlying conditions. So, like, if they have pneumonia, then they're definitely going to be more prone to heat stroke. If they have
We call that a lunger.
scours or something else that's causing a fever, they're going to probably, the heat's going to bother them more. But I don't think we've ever had any that just straight up die
Nope.
from heat stroke.
But
they go to the pond instead.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I tell you what they do. If you got a pond, they'll go stand in the pond. So they'll lose weight because they're standing in the pond because they're hot. Their feet are gonna get terribly trashed because they're standing in the pond. Their feet are soft. They're gonna get more flies. They're gonna be coated in mud. It's just nasty.
They're making their water nasty.
They're making their drinking water nasty if you're watering out of a pond. So ponds are not good when it's hot, and cows, if there's a pond, they're gonna go stand in it because they're hot. So the heat, plays a toll there. And another thing too, we had a cow a few years back drown in the pond because the mud on the banks, and she slipped. You could tell her back end just slipped out from underneath her, and she got all cockeyed, couldn't get back up because she'd kind of fallen in a trench where they'd worn it out, going down to the pond, and she laid there, and her nose was just in the water enough. She ended up drowning. So I mean, heat is not good because it forces them to do things like look for a pond or whatever. Well, I worry about lightning a lot. We haven't personally lost any to lightning, but I know guys that feed out of a round bale feeder. We've seen articles of it. The cows are all sitting around the round bale feeder, and lightning strikes and it kills all of them around there. when I started the lease, the landowner told me, he said, I'm missing 5 bulls. He said, if you find them, let me know. And I got on the horse and was riding pastures like the first week, and round a tree out in the back pasture at the very edge, there was 5 carcasses around a tree that had been struck by lightning, and they were dead. So they got struck by lightning there. So I worry when it gets like that. And then we had a tornado while we were this year in New Mexico on vacation. We had a tornado while we were gone, go right through the top of the pasture that the fall bears were in, but we didn't lose any.
There's enough trees down that that nothing got out.
Yeah, but there's trees everywhere, but none of the cows got sucked up or hit with a tree or anything like that. But I mean, yeah, there's just not a lot you can do about Mother Nature when she decides to get cranky.